Well, hello 1L, and we're going to be talking about converting fractions, decimals, and percents once again. So our learning goal today, I can successfully convert numbers into fractions from decimals and percents. So here, let's have a look. Percent means out of 100. That's worth highlighting, I think. Out of 100. So when changing a percent to a fraction, the denominator is always 100. So 40% is 40 out of 100. And 27% is 27 out of 100. And 125% is 125 out of 100. This also gives us a little bit of an insight into how to change a percent into a decimal. If we look at the fraction form, we're just always going to divide by 100. So if I want to change 40% into a decimal, it's going to be 0.40. And you can check that with the calculator. It's 40 divided by 100, just like that, 0.4. And there could be another 0 on the end. You don't have to have it there. So another way to think about it is take a look at where the decimal point is now on 27. That's 27. Since there is no decimal point, that means the decimal point is right there. And to change it into a decimal, going from a percent to a decimal, we move the decimal place back 2 places so that now it is there. So this 27% is 0.27. And one more here, 125%, where's the decimal? Well, if there is no decimal, it's right at the end, just like that. And we need to shift that decimal point back 2 places, 1, 2. So that is equal to 1.25 as a decimal. Okay, now let's have a look here. To change a decimal to a fraction, look at the place value where the decimal ends and use that as your denominator. So 0.5 is and only has 1 decimal place. So if we take a look at our 1 decimal place, that says it's tenths. So we use the part after the decimal, and then our bottom is 10 for tenths. Now let's take a look here. We've got 1, 2, 3. So we go 1, 2, 3. That's thousandths. That means our denominator is 1,000. And the numerator is going to be the part after the decimal, so 275. Now here we've got 2 places, 1, 2, so we go 1, 2, and that's where we end, so this means hundreds. So the denominator is going to be 100. And then we just take the part that's after the decimal and put it on top. So now let's take it this one. It's 2, so we already know that. That's 100. And so we take the 2 numbers after the decimal point and we put that on top, 62. Now we've got one more here. Now we've got some numbers out front. Let's not worry about them so much now. Let's take a look at how many places we have after the decimal point. So we've got 1, 2 places. 2 places after the decimal point is hundreds. So our denominator is 100, and the numbers after the decimal point are what we put on top, which is 29. Now, what do we do with this 4 here? Well, that 4 is a whole. It means 4 whole things and then 0.29 of another. So since this is a whole, we're going to put it out front, just like that. Now this next one, let's make this a little bit tougher. Let's put a 1 in there. Whoop. And why is that tougher? Well, it's more decimal places. So how many decimal places do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, and 3 places. 1, 2, 3 is thousandths. So our denominator is 1,000. Our numerator are the numbers that are after the decimal point, so 215. And what do we do with this before the decimal point? Well, that's a whole number, so we stick it out front of the fraction. So we've got 3 and 215 1,000ths. Now these numbers will actually reduce down further. There are numbers that have different denominators, fractions that have different denominators than 100 that this will be equal to, but we're not going to worry too much about that right now. If you can get it over the right value of 100, that's great. Okay, one last thing, just to make it a little bit easier for you, is so that you don't always have to be looking back at this chart to figure out what your denominator is. I want to point out that we have one number after the decimal point and we have 1 0. And over here we have 3 numbers after the decimal point and we have 3 zeros. So however many numbers you have after the decimal point is going to be the same number of zeros you have in the denominator, a 1 followed by that many zeros. So here there's 2 numbers after the decimal point. That means our denominator should be a 1 followed by 2 zeros. And that's exactly what we got in when we did it the last way that we were looking at it. I think we're going to stop it there, and you have a worksheet to complete.